You know how some people say, HOAs exist to keep neighborhoods peaceful and beautiful? Yeah. Whoever said that has clearly never met Linda Whitaker. Because if they had, they'd know HOAs aren't about peace. They're about power and control. And in my case, they were about trying to steal my house. Let me back up. I'm a 34-year-old guy named Marcus. I work remotely in cybersecurity, live alone, no kids, no drama. At least, that used to be the case. 3 years ago, after saving aggressively and grinding through long work weeks, I finally bought my first home. Nothing fancy. A modest, single-story, 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside Austin, Texas. Built in the early 2000s. Small yard, brick exterior, decent neighborhood. The house cost me $180,000. And I loved it. Not because it was perfect, but because it was mine. My place, my rules, my peace. Or so I thought. See, when I bought the house, I knew there was an HOA, but like a lot of first-time homeowners, I figured, how bad could it really be? Spoiler alert, very bad. But at first, everything seemed normal. The HOA fees were reasonable. The neighborhood looked well kept. People waved when I walked my dog. Kids rode bikes in the evenings. No red flags. Then Linda moved in. Or more accurately, I finally noticed Linda. Linda Whitaker was the HOA board president. Late 50s. Bleach blonde hair always pulled tight into a bun, lips permanently pursed like she was smelling something unpleasant, always dressed like she was headed to court, even when she was just getting the mail. You know the type. The kind of person who doesn't knock on your door. She announces herself. I didn't have any issues with her at first. Occasionally she'd walk by while I was mowing my lawn and give me that little tight smile that doesn't reach the eyes. But then the letters started. First letter. My trash bin was visible from the street for more than 12 hours after pickup. Violation. Second letter. My grass was 0.5 inches above the allowed height. Violation. Third letter. My garage door was open too long while I was unloading groceries. Violation. Petty stuff. Annoying but manageable. I figured maybe she was just overly strict. Whatever. Until one afternoon she knocked on my door. Hard. Not a polite knock. I own this place knock. I opened it, and there she was. Arms crossed. Clipboard tucked against her chest like a shield. Marcus, we need to talk about your property. No greeting. No hello. Straight to business. I blinked. Okay? She looked past me into my house like she was inspecting it with her eyes alone. This neighborhood has standards. That was her favorite word. Standards. I forced a polite smile. Is something wrong? She tilted her head slightly, studying me. Not yet, but I've been watching. That should have been my first warning. Over the next few months, the violations increased. Not because I was doing anything different, but because she was actively looking for reasons to find me. She once cited me because my porch light was too warm-toned and didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic. Another time, she left a notice saying my mailbox post needed repainting. It looked perfectly fine to me. Then came the most ridiculous one. I was fined because my dog barked for more than 5 minutes while I was on a work call. Not a party, not chaos, just normal dog behavior. When I tried to dispute it, I got a formal email from Linda herself. HOA guidelines exist to protect property values. If you're unwilling to comply, perhaps this neighborhood isn't a good fit for you. That line stuck with me. Perhaps this neighborhood isn't a good fit for you. At the time, I thought she was just being dramatic. I had no idea she was laying the groundwork for what came next. It happened on a Saturday morning. I was outside washing my car, headphones in, enjoying the rare feeling of having no meeting scheduled. That's when I noticed her standing across the street, watching me, not pretending to check her phone, not walking a dog, not doing yard work, just standing there, hands folded in front of her, staring. I pulled out one earbud. Can I help you? She crossed the street slowly, like she was approaching a negotiation table. Marcus, she said pleasantly. Too pleasantly. I've been thinking about your house. That sentence alone was enough to make my stomach tighten. Okay? She gestured vaguely at my property. You've done some unconventional things with it. I looked around. I washed my car. She smiled thinly. Not that. The decorations, the paint choices, the general aesthetic. For context, I'd painted my front door dark blue instead of HOA-approved beige. I had a small metal dragon statue near my flower bed, and I hung string lights across my back patio. That was it. Hardly chaos. Then she said something that completely blindsided me. Have you ever considered selling? I laughed because I genuinely thought she was joking. No. Why would I? Her eyes sharpened. Because I'd be willing to make you an offer. That wiped the smile off my face. She opened her clipboard and pulled out a piece of paper like she'd rehearsed this. I can offer you $40,000 for the property. I actually stared at her. You're joking. She didn't laugh. Marcus, she said calmly, this neighborhood is growing rapidly. Property values are sensitive. Your presence here is disruptive. Disruptive. That word felt like a slap. My house is worth at least $180,000, I said slowly. I'm aware, she replied. But this is a private offer, a convenience offer. Think of it as a favor. A favor? She wanted my $180K house for $40Ks and had the nerve to frame it as generosity. I shook my head. No, absolutely not. Her expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes did. Cold, calculating. I'd advise you to reconsider. Why? I asked. She tilted her head slightly. Because things can become difficult for homeowners who don't cooperate with the HOA. There it was. Not a threat, but absolutely a threat. I stood there, water hose still running, heart pounding. You're crossing a line. Her smile returned, thin and practiced. I'm simply trying to help you transition smoothly. I'm not selling. She studied me for a long moment. Then she tucked the paper back into her clipboard. Very well, she said quietly. We'll revisit this conversation. Then she turned and walked away like nothing had happened. But the air felt different after that. Heavier. Like the calm before something much worse. That same week I started getting violations almost daily. Not weekly, not occasionally, daily. My blinds were not uniform. My welcome mat was not HOA approved. My driveway had oil discoloration. My garbage can was placed 2 inches outside the approved location. 2 inches. She even cited me because my Amazon package sat on my porch for too long. I knew it wasn't coincidence. This was retaliation. Punishment for saying no. Then one evening, as I was taking my dog out, I saw her car slowly driving past my house. Not once, not twice, 3 times, crawling, windows down, watching. And that's when I realized something terrifying. Linda wasn't just an annoying HOA president. She was obsessed with getting me out of that house. And she wasn't going to stop. At first, I tried to stay calm. I told myself maybe I was overthinking things. Maybe Linda was just a control freak who didn't like being told no. But then the fines started stacking up. Not $50 here and there. Hundreds. 1 week alone, I racked up nearly $900 in violations. For what? My lawn edging wasn't sharp enough. My porch camera was visually intrusive. My house number font didn't match community standards. My curtains were the wrong shade of white. I wish I was exaggerating. I called the HOA management company. Not Linda, but the actual corporate office that oversaw the neighborhood. After being on hold for nearly 40 minutes, I finally got a woman named Trina. She sounded tired before I even explained anything. Let me guess, she said. You're calling about Linda. That alone told me everything. I explained the fines, the offer, the weird behavior. Trina sighed. Off the record? You're not the first person to complain about her. So why is she still president? I asked. Because she knows the bylaws better than most attorneys, and she makes life miserable for anyone who tries to challenge her. That didn't make me feel better. It made me feel trapped. The next escalation came through my neighbors. I started noticing subtle changes. People who used to wave at me stopped making eye contact. The guy across the street who used to chat about football suddenly kept conversation short. A woman walking her dog crossed the street when she saw me. It was like a social chill had settled over my house. Then one evening, my neighbor Paul, older guy, retired vet, usually friendly, approached me while I was checking my mail. He looked uncomfortable. Hey Marcus, can I ask you something? Sure. He rubbed the back of his neck. Did you, file some kind of complaint about the neighborhood? I frowned. What? No. He hesitated. Linda said you were unhappy here. That you were trying to destabilize things. I actually laughed because the accusation was so absurd. Paul, I work from home and walk my dog. That's my entire life. He studied my face. Then his expression shifted slightly. Conflicted. Yeah, I figured something wasn't adding up. That's when I realized she wasn't just targeting me administratively. She was poisoning the social well, turning me into the neighborhood problem, the outsider, the troublemaker, the one who didn't belong. And it was working. A few days later, I came home from the grocery store and found something taped to my front door. Not an HOA notice, a handwritten note. You still have time to make the smart decision. No name, no signature, but I knew exactly who it was from. That night, I barely slept. Every little noise outside felt amplified. Every passing car felt suspicious. I started checking my security cameras obsessively. That's when I noticed something strange. Almost every night around 11:40 p.m., a familiar car would slowly drive past my house. A silver Lexus, Linda's car. She never got out, never stopped, just passed by slowly, like she was checking on something. Or someone. Me. I decided I needed evidence. If she was going to try to bully me out of my own home, I wasn't going to just roll over. So I started documenting everything. Screenshots of emails, photos of violation notices, security camera clips of her drive-bys, dates, times, details. I created a folder on my desktop titled Linda Whitaker. I didn't know yet what I'd use it for, but I knew I'd need it. And thank God I did, because that same week, things crossed a line I didn't even know existed. It happened on a Thursday. I had a long day of meetings and finished work around 7 p.m. I took my dog out back, let him run around for a bit, then went inside to make dinner. Around 8:30 I got a motion alert from my backyard camera. That was weird. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the live feed on my phone. At first I thought the camera was glitching. Then my brain processed what I was actually seeing. Someone was standing inside my backyard. Not a delivery person, not a neighbor's kid chasing a ball. An adult, standing by my back fence, just looking around. My stomach dropped. I zoomed in. Blonde hair, rigid posture, clipboard tucked under one arm. Linda, on my property, uninvited, unannounced, trespassing. I watched in disbelief as she walked slowly along my fence line, peered at my windows, then leaned down to inspect something near my patio. My heart was hammering. I opened the back door and stepped outside. "Can I help you?" She didn't even flinch. She straightened up calmly, turned toward me and smiled. "Oh good, you're home," she said, like she hadn't just been caught sneaking around my yard. I was conducting an exterior compliance check. "In my backyard?" She nodded, completely serious. "HOA jurisdiction includes visible property concerns. This isn't visible from the street." She tilted her head. "That depends on vantage point." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're trespassing," I said. Her smile thinned. "You're being emotional. That one sentence did something to me. The calmness, the dismissal, the entitlement." I stepped closer to the fence. "You need to leave, now." She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she slowly turned, walked toward the gate, and let herself out. No apology, no embarrassment, no acknowledgement that she'd crossed a line. Just control. And as she walked away, she said over her shoulder, "You're making this much harder than it needs to be." That was the moment I stopped thinking of Linda as just an annoying HOA president. She wasn't enforcing rules anymore. She was trying to break me, mentally, emotionally, socially. She wanted me uncomfortable, paranoid, isolated. She wanted me to give up, to take the $40,000, to leave. But I wasn't ready to do that. Not yet. Because now I wasn't just defending my house. I was defending myself, and I was done being polite. I didn't call the police that night. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew exactly how it would go. She's the HOA president? Yes. So this is a civil matter. I'd heard enough stories online to know how easily this kind of thing gets brushed off. Instead, I did the next best thing. I doubled down on documentation. I backed up all my camera footage. I exported timestamps. I created a separate cloud folder. I started keeping a handwritten journal too. Dates, times, quotes, everything. Because if Linda was playing chess, I wasn't about to show up with checkers. The following Monday, I received a certified letter from the HOA's attorney. Not an email, not a notice, a full-on legal letter. The subject line alone made my chest tighten. Notice of intent to pursue enforcement action. It claimed I was repeatedly violating community standards, creating a hostile environment, refusing to cooperate with HOA governance, lowering property values. Me. The guy with a clean yard, quiet lifestyle, and neatly maintained house. At the bottom was a warning. If I failed to correct these issues, the HOA reserved the right to pursue further action, including liens. Liens on my house. My house that I worked years to afford. I stared at the paper for a long time. Not scared, not yet. Just furious. Because this wasn't about rules anymore. This was about power. That evening, I did something I probably should have done months earlier. I actually read the full HOA bylaws, all 47 pages of them, and buried deep inside the document, under a section titled Board Member Conduct, I found something interesting. Board members were explicitly prohibited from entering a homeowner's property without permission, harassing or targeting individual residents, using their position for personal financial gain. Personal financial gain. That line stuck out like a spotlight, because what Linda had done, offering me $40K for a $180K home while leveraging her authority. That wasn't just unethical. It might have been illegal. 2 days later, the HOA held its monthly community meeting. I'd never attended one before. Linda probably assumed I wouldn't start now. She was wrong. I showed up early. 15 minutes before start time, the small community clubhouse was already half full. Folding chairs, a long table at the front where the board sat, coffee in styrofoam cups. And there she was. Linda, seated dead center, clipboard in front of her, posture perfect. When she saw me walk in, her eyes narrowed for just a split second. Then her polite, fake smile returned. "Oh," she said loudly, "Marcus decided to join us." Every head in the room turned toward me. I forced a calm smile and took a seat in the second row. Let the games begin. The meeting started like any HOA meeting probably does. Landscaping updates, pool maintenance, holiday decoration guidelines, boring stuff. Then they opened the floor for homeowner concerns. My heart was pounding, but I stood up anyway. "Hi," I said. "I'd like to address ongoing issues I've had with the HOA board president." The room shifted. You could feel the tension instantly. Linda didn't look surprised. She looked amused. "Go ahead," she said sweetly. I took a breath. Over the past several months, I've received excessive and inconsistent violation notices. I've also experienced harassment, social interference, and most recently, trespassing. Murmurs filled the room. Linda leaned forward slightly. "That's a serious accusation." "It is," I agreed, "which is why I have documentation." Her eyes flicked briefly, just once, to the clipboard in front of her. I continued, "Including video footage of you entering my backyard without permission." That got a reaction. A woman near the front actually gasped. Linda's smile tightened. "I believe you're misinterpreting routine compliance checks," she said calmly. "In my fenced backyard?" I asked. "At night?" More murmurs. A man near the back spoke up. "That doesn't sound right." Linda's eyes swept across the room, sharp as knives. The murmurs quieted. Power. That's what she had. Control over the room, over the narrative. "I assure everyone," she said smoothly, "all actions taken by the board are for the good of the community." Then she turned her gaze back to me. "Some homeowners simply struggle with accountability." There it was. The pivot. Suddenly I wasn't the victim. I was the problem. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Someone avoided eye contact. She'd been working on them longer than I realized. I sat back down, realizing something in that moment. This wasn't a fair arena. This was her territory. And she was better prepared than I was. After the meeting, several neighbors approached me quietly. Not loudly, not publicly, quietly. One woman whispered, "Be careful." A man said, "She's done this before." Another neighbor just shook their head and said, "I'm sorry you're her target now." Her target. Like this was a known cycle. Like homeowners came and went under her pressure. That realization settled heavily in my chest. How many people had she pushed out before me? And more importantly, why? The answer started forming a few days later. I was going through some old paperwork related to my home purchase, survey maps, property lines, city zoning documents, when I noticed something odd. My lot was different, not in size, but in placement. My house sat on a strangely shaped section of land compared to others on the street, almost like it had been divided differently. I pulled up the county property records online. Then I zoomed out, and that's when I saw it. My property sat on the corner of what looked like a larger, undeveloped parcel behind the neighborhood. A parcel that had been sold 2 years ago to an LLC. The name of the LLC? Whitaker Holdings. Linda's last name. My stomach dropped. Suddenly the $40,000 offer made sense. Suddenly the harassment made sense. Suddenly the obsession made sense. This wasn't about my house. This was about my land. Or more specifically, where my land sat, and whatever Linda planned to do with the property behind it. And the worst part? I had a sinking feeling she wasn't just trying to buy me out. I think she was trying to force me out. Once I saw the LLC name, I couldn't unsee it. Whitaker Holdings. Linda wasn't just some power-hungry HOA president. She was a businesswoman, a real estate player, and possibly a predator. Everything suddenly had context. The harassment, the fines, the pressure, the lowball offer. This wasn't personal. It was strategic, and that almost made it worse. I spent the entire weekend researching property records, zoning plans, county development proposals, city council meeting notes, and slowly, piece by piece, the picture formed. Behind our neighborhood sat a large, undeveloped parcel of land. For years, it had been classified as protected green space. No commercial use, no high-density housing. But 6 months ago, a rezoning request had been submitted. The applicant, Whitaker Holdings. Proposed use, mixed-use residential redevelopment. Translation, townhomes, condos, dense housing, big money. But there was a problem, a legal problem. A problem named my house. Because of how the lots were drawn decades ago, my property created a boundary issue. If Linda wanted to develop the land behind the neighborhood, she needed clean access, road access, utility routing, easement space. And my property sat directly in the way. If she could buy me out cheap, problem solved. If she could push me out, also problem solved. If she could make me default, rack up fines, force a lien, trigger foreclosure, problem solved. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was a plan. I knew I needed help. Not internet help. Not Reddit help. Real help. So I reached out to an attorney. Her name was Denise Carter, real estate litigation specialist. Sharp, direct, no nonsense. I laid everything out for her. The offer, the fines, the letters, the trespassing, the LLC. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said one sentence that sent a chill through me. You're not her first. Denise explained that HOA abuse tied to development schemes happens more often than people think. Board presidents with side businesses, conflicts of interest buried behind shell companies, pressure tactics designed to look like normal HOA enforcement. The key difference? Most homeowners never connect the dots, but I had. And Denise was very interested in that. If we can prove she used her HOA authority to further personal financial interests, she said, this becomes more than harassment. This becomes fraud, abuse of power, potentially criminal. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in a while, hope. Then something happened that almost blew everything apart. It was a Tuesday night, around 10:15 p.m. I was sitting at my desk, reviewing footage, when I heard a loud bang outside. Not a normal noise, not a car door, a sharp, violent sound. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the front camera. The image made my blood run cold. Someone was standing in my driveway, wearing a hoodie, face partially obscured, holding something in their hand. They bent down near my tire, did something quickly, then walked away out of frame. I ran outside immediately, and there it was. A long screw embedded deep in my front tire, not road debris, not an accident, placed deliberately. My hands were shaking as I pulled it out. This wasn't HOA fines anymore. This wasn't paperwork. This was escalation. Someone was willing to physically sabotage my life to push me out. The next morning, I told Denise. Her reaction was immediate. You're filing a police report, she said, today. And this time, with the documentation, the footage, the pattern of behavior, the officers actually listened. They couldn't accuse Linda directly, but they took it seriously. They logged it. They documented it, which mattered, because now there was an official record. And Linda didn't know that yet. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. A knock at my door. Not aggressive, not authoritative, nervous. I opened it. It was Paul, my retired vet neighbor. He looked around before speaking, like someone afraid of being seen. Can I come in? He asked quietly. I let him inside. He didn't waste time. She's going too far this time, he said. My stomach dropped. You know? He nodded slowly. We all know. In pieces. But nobody's put it together like you did. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded envelope. These were left in my mailbox by mistake a few months back, he said. Wrong address. Same street number as yours, different house. I opened the envelope. Inside were copies of internal HOA emails, printed, conversations between board members. And right there, in black and white, was Linda writing, if Marcus refuses to cooperate, continued enforcement pressure may encourage relocation. His lot is necessary for project feasibility. Necessary for project feasibility. She had admitted it. In writing. I looked up at Paul. Why give me this now? He met my eyes. Because someone slashed my nephew's tire last year after he pushed back on her. And I stayed quiet. I'm not doing that again. That envelope was dynamite. But before Denise could even fully act on the new evidence, Linda made her boldest move yet. It happened in broad daylight. Saturday afternoon. I was mowing my lawn when I heard clapping. Slow, deliberate. I turned. Linda was standing on the sidewalk, smiling, applauding. I shut off the mower. What do you want? She walked closer, stopping just outside my property line. You're very persistent, she said calmly. I'll give you that. What's your endgame, Linda? She tilted her head. You already know. Then say it. For the first time, her smile faltered. Just slightly. You're standing in the way of progress, she said. and progress always wins eventually. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Then she did something that made my blood run cold. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. You can fight this. You can drag this out. You can involve lawyers and police and neighbors. A pause. Or you can take a generous offer and walk away before things get uglier. I stared at her. You slashed my tire. Her eyes didn't react. No shock. No denial. Just calm. I think you're becoming paranoid. Gaslighting. Pure calculated gaslighting. I pulled out my phone, started recording. Her eyes flicked to it instantly. Careful, she said softly. Public accusations can have consequences. Good, I replied. So can documented corruption. For the first time since I'd met her, Linda looked genuinely unsettled. Just for a second. Then she turned and walked away. But this time I knew something she didn't. I wasn't alone anymore, and she wasn't as untouchable as she thought. After that confrontation on the sidewalk, things went quiet. Too quiet. No violation notices, no drive-bys, no letters, for almost a week. And somehow that silence was worse than the harassment. Because when someone like Linda goes quiet, it's not peace. It's strategy. Denise didn't waste any time. Once she saw the emails Paul provided, everything shifted. This is no longer defensive, she said. This is offensive. She filed a formal complaint with the state HOA regulatory body. She submitted evidence to the city zoning board. She contacted the HOA's parent management company. She opened a civil case citing harassment, abuse of power, and conflict of interest. And then she did something I wasn't expecting. She encouraged me to speak publicly, not on social media, not emotionally, but strategically, at the next HOA meeting, with everything documented. That meeting happened 2 weeks later. The room was packed, not just homeowners, but people from the management company, 2 city representatives, and someone I later learned was an investigator assigned to HOA complaints. Linda walked in like usual, chin up, posture perfect, confidence rehearsed, until she saw Denise sitting beside me, until she saw the stack of folders on the table, until she saw the unfamiliar faces watching her instead of deferring to her. Her confidence wavered, just slightly. That was all I needed. The meeting started, routine items. Then they opened the floor. Denise stood up first. She introduced herself calmly, professional, precise, unshakable. I represent Marcus in matters concerning ongoing harassment, abuse of authority, and conflict of interest involving the HOA board president. You could have heard a pin drop. Linda didn't interrupt, didn't smile, didn't move. Denise continued. She presented the lowball purchase offer, the pattern of selective enforcement, the surveillance footage, the trespassing, the threatening communications, the property records tying Linda to Whitaker Holdings, and finally, the internal emails. When Denise read the line aloud, continued enforcement pressure may encourage relocation. His lot is necessary for project feasibility. A collective gasp filled the room. That wasn't interpretation. That was confession. Linda finally stood up. This is a gross misrepresentation, she began. But the investigator raised a hand. Ma'am, he said calmly, you'll have the opportunity to speak. Please sit. She froze, then slowly sat down. Power shift. Instant. Neighbors started speaking up, one after another. Stories poured out. I sold my house last year because I couldn't handle the pressure. She fined us every week until we gave up. She threatened liens over minor issues. She tried to buy our property cheap too. Not one voice, many, a pattern, a history, a trail. And suddenly I wasn't the problem homeowner. I was the one who stayed long enough to expose it. Within a month everything collapsed. The HOA management company removed Linda from her position. The board dissolved and restructured. The state launched a formal investigation. The city froze Whitaker Holdings' rezoning application. Then came the lawsuits, civil suits, ethics violations, fraud investigations. Her LLC was exposed. Her connections scrutinized. Her finances examined. The woman who once walked the neighborhood like she owned it? Now she avoided eye contact at the grocery store. Then eventually, she moved away. No announcement, no goodbye, just gone. People started waving again. Kids rode bikes past my house again. Neighbors stopped to talk again. One day, Paul stood beside me while I watered my lawn. You changed this neighborhood, he said quietly. I shook my head. No, I just refused to leave it. He smiled. Sometimes that's all it takes. Months later, Denise called me with an update. Her rezoning project officially died, she said. No buyer, no approvals, too much scrutiny. I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for nearly a year. And the best part? She added, "What? Your property value went up." I laughed. Of course it did. Because that's the part nobody tells you about standing your ground. It costs you peace at first. It costs you energy, sleep, comfort. But in the end, it gives you something back. Ownership. Not just of your home, but of your dignity. I still live here. Same house, same dark blue door, same dragon statue, same string lights on the back patio. No violations, no letters, no harassment. Just peace, real peace. The kind I thought I bought when I signed my mortgage papers. The kind I actually earned by refusing to be bullied out of my own life. Because sometimes, the scariest people don't wear masks. They wear blazers, carry clipboards, quote bylaws, and smile while they try to take everything from you. But sometimes, they underestimate one thing: the person who decides they're done being afraid.